Zoe Sherinian is the professor of ethnomusicology in the School of Music at the University of Oklahoma. She has published the book Tamil Folk Music as Dalit Liberation Theology in 2014. She has also co-edited the book called Making Congregational Music Local, Indigenous Songs and Cosmopolitan Styles in the Music of Global Christianity in 2017. She has also produced and directed 2 documentary films. First one, This is a Music, Reclaiming an Untouchable Drum in 2011. This film talks about the changing status of Dalit drummers in India. And the second documentary is called Shakti Vibrations. This movie was released in 2019. This film talks about the use of Tamil folk arts to develop self-esteem in young Dalit women at the Shakti Folk Cultural Center. She is presently writing a monograph entitled Drumming Our Liberation, the Spiritual, Cultural, and Sonic Power of the Parai Drum. Dr. Sherinian is an active musician who performs and conducts training on the Parai drum, and she also plays mirdangam and jazz drum. இதுவரைக்கும் நான் சொன்னது டாக்டர் ஜோயி அவர்களுடைய அறிவுக்கும் திறமைக்குமான சான்று. இனி நான் ஒரு கவிதையை படிக்க போறேன். இந்த கவிதை டாக்டர் ஜோயி அவர்களின் அன்புக்கான சான்று. இந்த கவிதையை எழுதியவர் அவங்களுடைய ஆசான் மணிமாறன் அவர்கள். டாக்டர் ஜோயி அவர்களுடைய பிறந்த நாளுக்காக இந்த கவிதையை எழுதி அவர் அனுப்பியிருக்காரு. இதை நான் தமிழ்லயே படிக்க போறேன். அமெரிக்காவில் பிறந்தாய், அனைத்து உலகையும் தன் ஊராக கருதி பூமி பந்தையே பூர்வீகம் என கொண்டாய். நீ வெள்ளைக்காரியாம், ஆம், வெள்ளை வன்மங்களை வெளுக்கும் கருப்பு மனம் கொண்ட வெள்ளைக்காரி. அமெரிக்காவில் உதயமான எங்கள் அங்கனூர் அங்கம்மாள் நீ. ஜாதிய தீண்டாமை கைகள் கலையையும் கலைஞர்களையும் தொட மறுத்த நிலையில் நீ பேரன்புடன் கட்டி அணைத்தாய். பரட்டை அடி அடிக்கும் உனது பறை இசையில் பாமரரும் சக்தி பெறுவர். பரட்டை அடி அடிக்கும் உனது பறை இசையில் பாமரரும் சக்தி பெறுவர். உனது பறை விரல்கள் பட்டாலே குறிஞ்சி மலர் பூக்கும். இசை ஆய்வாளரான பேராசிரியர் இவர் பறை இசை கலைஞனின் மாணவி என்றதில் இங்குள்ள பலரின் பகட்டு கிரீடங்கள் வீழ்ந்து நொறுங்கின. பறையாளர்களை நீ ஆசான் என்று அழைத்ததில் பறை கலைஞர்களின் மாண்பு பல படிகள் உயர்ந்தன. கற்பிக்கும் கலைஞர்களையும் குழுக்களையும் அங்கீகரிப்பதில் நன்றி மறப்பது நன்றென்று என்னும் குரலின் பொருள் நீ. ஜாதிய ஆணாதிக்க சூழலில் நிலவை போன்ற பறையுடன் நீ நெருக்கம் கொண்டதால் உன்னை ஒரு பெண் நீல் ஆம்ஸ்ட்ராங் என்பேன். ஜாதிய ஆணாதிக்க சூழலில் நிலவை போன்ற பறையுடன் நீ நெருக்கம் கொண்டதால் உன்னை ஒரு பெண் நீல் ஆம்ஸ்ட்ராங் என்பேன். நீ கலைத்தாயின் மகள் அல்ல, நீயே பலரை பிறப்பிக்கும் கருவறை. உலகளாவிய தமிழர்களின் உந்து சக்தி நீ. உள்ளூர் கலைஞர்களின் உயிர் காற்று நீ. உலக பறை களம் உன்னை எப்போதும் தன் நெஞ்சில் தாங்கிச் செல். ஓங்கி எழுகிற பறையொலியில் உனது பெயரும் உரத்து ஒலிக்கும். ஓங்கி எழுகிற பறையொலியில் உனது பெயரும் உரத்து ஒலிக்கும். பறை பரப்பும் தமிழ் மனத்தில் உனது புகழும் மணக்கும். பறை பரப்பும் தமிழ் மனத்தில் உனது புகழும் மணக்கும். பறை இசை வாழ்த்துகளுடன் மணிமாறன் மகிழினி புத்தர் கலைக்குழு. இதுதான் அவர்கள் அனுப்பிய அந்த கவிதை. மிக அருமையான கவிதை. நானே மிகவும் ரசித்தேன். டாக்டர் ஜோய் அவர்களும் இதை ரசித்திருப்பார்கள் எனக்கு தெரியும். இப்போது டாக்டர் ஜோய் அவர்களை நான் அன்போடு அழைக்கிறேன். வாங்க டாக்டர் ஜோய் அவர்களே, வணக்கம்.
வணக்கம், கலை வணக்கம். எல்லாருக்கும் நன்றி. And I want to say a special greetings and hello to my teachers, a remembrance to my teachers. First of all, the 9 drummers of Kurinji Malar, and the word was, the phrase was mentioned in the poem, who live near Paramagudi in the village of Munivendri. My dear teacher Paratai, or Theophilus Apavu, from Tamil Nadu Theological Seminary, who first introduced me to Parai, as well as really Tamil Gramya Isai. And to Manimaran and his son Samaran, who I studied with most recently for about 6 months. So, but thank you all. to Chennai, America, for giving me this opportunity to share my research and just have urvu with all of you, because that's what it's about. When Madam Perasier Manimehelai, asked about research. How do we do research? It's ultimately about love for the subject, anbu, and for the people. And I love Tamil people. I love Tamil culture and language and food. And it's about creating relationship and sustaining that relationship over a lifetime. That's what research is about. And the knowledge that I put out is knowledge that's been given to me, blessed to me by in this case mostly Dalit people, and so that's what I'm trying to share.
Okay, thank you. We also love everyone. That is that's what our literature teaches us, right? யாதும் ஊரே யாவரும் கேளீர், உங்களையும் நாங்கள் எங்களோடு அணைத்துக் கொள்கிறோம். நீங்க இப்போ உங்ககிட்ட நான் கேட்கணும்னு நினைக்கிறது, உங்களுடைய இளமை காலம் உங்களுக்கு எப்படி இசையில் ஆர்வம் வந்தது? உங்களுடைய childhood and interest in music. How did you develop interest in music? அது பத்தி சொல்லுங்க.
Yeah. So I started playing percussion, drums, when I was age 11, and I continued, through high school, lots of experiences, and then went to Oberlin College and was both an anthropology major and a percussion performance major in the conservatory there. And so really combined those things, knowing that I wanted to be a professor and be in the discipline of ethnomusicology. And I was really grateful to have a professor, Roderick Knight, who had done research in folk music in India, as well as in Africa. And so he exposed me early to Indian music. And also my Mridangam guru, who I would eventually study with in my PhD studies at Wesleyan University, Sri Ramnath Raghavan, was living in Cleveland at the time, and he would come down to Oberlin, and I took some Mridangam lessons with him as a freshman. And I heard him perform with T. Vishwanathan and the American vocalist, I'm forgetting, his first name was John. So they performed in 1980 at Oberlin, and it was an amazing event for me just to see that one concert. I was completely intrigued with the Mridangam and the complexity of how do you play a meter or a tala of 5 or 7 on this instrument, and also just the kind of what we call groove, the syncopation on the left hand, was just very attractive to me. And so I really wanted to learn how that instrument worked. And that was my first introduction to Indian music, really. And I continued that interest. Yeah.
Okay, so now that you are interested in Indian music, right? So how did you pursue that interest? Like, tell us about it. Like, how did you go to India? What was the program? Where did you stay and all those stuff?
Yeah. So I learned early in my career about the Oberlin Shansi Fellowship. And this is a wonderful program, and we're actually celebrating its 70th year in Madurai, in India, but stationed in Madurai. And this is an association that Oberlin College has with the American College and Lady Doak College in Madurai. And it goes back even earlier to it's called the Madura Mission. The American Congregational Mission goes back to 1830. I've done some research on it. And so the roots of those colleges and the relationship between Oberlin go back further. But this program started in 1950, and the first fellow or representative was Joe Elder, who's a really well-known sociologist and been at the University of Wisconsin for many, many years, and has done all sorts of things that created the Wisconsin Junior Year Abroad program, and has done so much for Tamil studies. And other people, Jim Lindholm, many Tamil scholars, contemporary scholars as well, and people who've done ethnomusicology went to Oberlin and were fellows on this program. So I came to Lady Doak in 1985 and spent 2 years in Madurai. And that's just a significant amount of time to really learn the language of Tamil. And I studied at Wisconsin before I went intensively for about 8 weeks. And then we studied at Madurai Kamaraj University as a group. And I also spent a great deal of my time learning Carnatic music. So I studied Mridangam with Sri Shankar Shivan, who's Murugabopati's was his father, and Seshagopalan's guru, and he was in the palace at Ramnad in the 1930s, and so that was an amazing experience. He was about 80 years old at the time, and so I got the real what we call old school version of learning, where he would shake his hand at me and call me Mutal, Mutal. And, the fan goes off and I'm sweating, and it was a good lessons in learning how to focus and remember the lessons. And I also studied vocal music with Sri Kamala Ramamurthy, so I learned a lot of Carnatic vocal that way. But my focus was really on Mridangam, and then I came back to the US in 1987, spent a couple years in San Francisco, and then went to Wesleyan University in Connecticut, where again, both T. Vishwanathan and Ramnath Raghavan were teaching there. So I had an amazing 4 years with both of them, but again, mostly with Raghavan. And I was his Seshya. And he taught me how to teach Solkatu, how to teach Mridangam, and I did my master's thesis on the Taladasa Pranas, the history of them in various Sanskrit treatises, as well as the sort of contemporary practice of this concept of nadai. So how do you change the subdivision of the beat from 4 pulses within each beat, takadimi to takita, or 5 or 7. How do you make those changes? And that was a wonderful experience learning, writing that thesis. That was my master's thesis. And then I decided to focus on my advisor at the time, Dr. Kay Chalamet, who's at Harvard now. She said, well, so what are you going to study for your PhD thesis? What's your topic? And I said, some, Tamil folk rhythm in 7. And she said, don't focus on a music, focus on a people and the music that those people have. And I said, well, it has to be Tamil people. Tamil Makal is my Makal. And this is the language I've been learning. This is what all my experience. And then I realized I had significant experience with the Christian community in Madurai. Learning the literature of Vedanayakam Sastriyar, for example. There's this whole corpus in what's called the lyrics, or the kirtane, the Christian kirtane. So Vedanayakam Sastriyar from Tanjore. So I thought, okay, let me go and look at that. And so I went back in 1991 and did just a brief study, made some connections, met Sham Vedanayakam in Tanjore, and thought, okay, let me focus, because nobody has studied this in ethnomusicology and in English. And so I pursued that, and so I decided that I would focus my studies, my ethnography, at the Tamil Nadu Theological Seminary, Tamil Nadu Irayil Kaluri in Madurai, because that's where they were producing all of this music. And so I went there. I had a Fulbright Fellowship and an American Institute of Indian Studies Fellowship in 1993, and to spend about 14 months. Once I got there, I met the teacher, a man named Anis Chinia, the teacher of Theophilus Apavu, who ended up being my main asan, if I can use that word. And he said, you need to study with Theophilus Apavu. And this is a man we call Paratai.
Mm-hmm.
That's his sort of pen name. Mm-hmm. So I met Paratai. I actually heard his music first. And I heard a song called Tai Tagapanare. I'll just sing a little bit. Tai Tagapanare Sagalateum Petavare Yengasami Unavanangi Sentamil Patapadichom காசில்ல மிருகத்திரி கொண்டு வரல காசில்ல மிருகத்திரி கொண்டு வரல எங்க ஒத்துமையா காணிக்காய பெறச்சோம் தாயி. So I heard this song.
ஒத்துமையா காணிக்கையா படைச்சோம். ஆஹா.
We offer our unity. Correct. Instead of any other kind of material offering, right? And we're poor people. We don't have money to bring candles and
correct.
So I was really intrigued by his theology, his Dalit theology coming through, his perspective from the village people and the poor people, but also the tune and the rhythm behind this. And so I went to him, and he was writing what he calls a Gramya Isai Varipada. Gramya Isai Varipada. So an entire liturgy, a Christian, CSI-based Christian liturgy, fully in Tamil folk music, but from the perspective of Dalit theology. So using metaphors from village life, from agricultural life, and, in a sense of liberation, of viditale. So I was completely, really captured by the music and his theology, because so much of my work in general, in an American context, has been about social justice, and I was much more attracted to that than really the upper caste production of Kirtane. Vedanagam Sastriyar was a Velala. He's using Sanskritized Tamil. It's really from a kind of Shaiva Velala perspective from Tanjore, and my heart was not there. My heart was with the poor and Dalit people in the village, and this music really reflected that. So Paratai introduced me and this context to the Parai, and teachers like Arumuhan from Alanganallur, he was involved at the seminary, and so I was really attracted to the drum, because I'm just gonna take, so these are the Parai sticks. And I've been playing stick drums since I was age 11. So the technique that we would use on the snare drum looks like this. And with Parai, you just shift it like that. So it was very easy for me to pick up this technique. And this stick is what's really challenging and really difficult for people to get right. So, but I picked it up very quickly, and I also love to dance.
Okay.
So the combination, Parayattam, the combination of dance and drumming together was just completely attractive to me.
எனக்கு நீங்க சொல்லும் போது நீங்க மிருதங்கம் ஆகட்டும், கர்நாடக இசை ஆகட்டும், எல்லா ஆசிரியர்களின் பெயரையும் நினைவு வச்சு நீங்க ஒவ்வொரு இசையுமே ஒரு ஆழமாக நீங்க படிச்சதை நீங்க சொல்றீங்க. அதன் வரலாறு தெரிந்து வெறுமனே ஒரு இசையை படிக்கணும் அப்படின்னு நீங்க படிக்காம அதன் உள்ள போய் யூ வாண்ட் டு லேர்ன் இட் இன் டெப்த். அதை எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டேன் நான் இப்போ. சோ இப்ப நீங்க அதுல இருந்து எப்படி நீங்க பறை இசைக்கு மாறினீங்க அப்படின்னு தான் நான் கேட்கணும்னு நினைச்சேன். நீங்க அதுக்கும் பதில் சொல்லிட்டீங்க. யுவர் இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் ஷிஃப்டட் டு பறை because of the social injustice aspect. You wanted to learn the culture and life of those people. That's what interested you. Than the upper level kirtanas and all that. That is very interesting.